Hi, Freddie. I'm back with chapter 14. We're getting there, hey? Um, this one is called The Triumph of the Witch. As soon as the witch had gone, Allison said, "We must move from this place at once." At Will, he wanted to other purpose. "We shall encamp tonight at the fords of Benna." Of course, everyone was dying to ask him how he had arranged matters with the witch, but his face was stern and everyone's ears were well ringing with the sound of the roar, and so nobody dared. After a meal which was taken in the open air on the hilltop, for the men had great strength, strong by now, and grains and dried the grasses. They were busy for a while taking the pavilion down and packing things up. Before 2 o'clock, they were on the march and set off in a northeasterly direction, walking at an easy pace, for they had not far to go. During the first part of the journey, Allison explained to Peter his planning for the campaign. As she has finished her business in these parts, he said, the witch and her crew will almost certainly fall back to her house and prepare for a siege. You may or may not be able to cut her off and prevent her from reaching it. They then went on to outlay two plans of battle, one of fighting the witch and her people in the woods, and the other for assaulting her castle. And all the time he was advising Peter how to conduct the operations, saying things like, "You must put the centenarians in such and such a place, or you might post scouts to see that she doesn't do so and so," till at last Peter said, "But you will be there yourself, Allison." "I can give you no promise of that," answered the lion, and he continued giving Peter his instructions. For the last part of the journey, it was Susan and Lucy who saw most of him. He did not talk very much and seemed to them to be sad. It was still afternoon when they came down to the place where the river valley had widened out and the river was broad and shallow. This was the ford of Burnanen, and Allison gave orders to halt on this side of the water. But Peter said, "Wouldn't it be better to camp on the far side, for fear she should try a night attack or anything?" Allison, who seemed to been thinking about something else, aroused himself with a shake of his magnificent mane and said, What's that, Peter?" "What's that?" Peter said it all over again. "No," said Allison, in a dull voice, as if it didn't matter. "No, she will not make an attack tonight." And then he sighed deeply. But presently he added, "All the same, it was well thought of. That is how a soldier ought to think. But it doesn't really matter." So they proceeded to pitch their camp. Allison's mood affected everybody that evening. Peter was feeling uncomfortable, too, at the idea of fighting the battle on his own. His news that Allison might not be there had come as a great shock to him. Supper that evening was a quiet meal. Everybody felt how difficult it had been last night, or even that morning. It was as if the good news, having just begun, was already drawing to their end. This feeling affected Susan so much that she couldn't get to sleep when she went to bed. And after she had lain counting sheep and turning over and over, she heard Lucy give a long sigh and turned over just beside her in the darkness. "Can't you get to sleep either?" said Susan. "No," said Lucy. "I thought you were asleep." "I say, Susan." "What?" I've had the most horrible feeling, as if something was hanging over us. Have you? Because as a matter of fact, so have I. Something about Allison, said Lucy. Either some dreadful thing is going to happen to him, or something dreadful that he's going to do. There's been something wrong with him all afternoon, said Susan. Lucy, what was that he said about not being with us at the end of the battle? You don't think that he could be stealing away and leaving us tonight, do you? Where is he now? Said Susan. He is here in the pavilion. I don't think so. Susan, let's go outside and have a look. Look around. We might see him. All right, let's, said Susan. We might just as well be doing something than lying awake here. Very quietly the two girls grabbed their own way among the other sleepers and crept out of the tent. The moonlight was bright and everything was quiet, all still except for the noise of the river chattering over the stones. Then suddenly Susan caught Lucy's